Have you ever wondered what exists out in the vastness of space? What creatures might inhabit surreal worlds that have existed for countless eons before our own? Some of our brightest minds have dedicated their lives to the search for life beyond the stars. Even today, we are still just as fascinated at the prospect of discovering extraterrestrial life as we were decades ago. It is this very fascination that led to the premiere of a 90-minute documentary event on the History Channel in the beginning of March 2009. Simply titled Ancient Aliens, the documentary explored the possibility that ancient humans were visited by extraterrestrials and looked at several sites around the world for evidence of this visitation. Before History Channel had time to blink, they had a sensational hit on their hands. They rushed to continue the project, though not as another standalone documentary. Instead, they launched the first 5-episode season of what would go on to be history's most popular show still today. The series, now bearing the name of the documentary that had premiered a year prior, debuted on April 20th, and History Channel never looked back. If you were on the internet with the ability to form long-term memories in the first few years this show was on History Channel, you're probably all too familiar with this meme that helped to further skyrocket the show to the legendary status it now has in our online culture. Also, this was personally one of my favorite memes when I was in high school. I'm not quite sure what that says about me. I'm gonna leave that up to you, actually. I was endlessly fascinated with this show, and not because I necessarily, believed what they were saying, but I was more so enraptured by the show's very unique presentation. They would always tell you about some really interesting ancient archaeological site that actually exists and has, a rich history and culture around it, and you could go and learn about these places and the people that built these amazing structures that have lasted for millennia. And the show would turn around and to your face, without blinking, tell you that aliens were the ones that built these sites, not the people. Yeah. It was the perfect kind of show to have on in the background while you're working on something else, which is exactly what I did with it when I was in college. But recently, one of the show's oh-so-famous and recurring guest speakers, Mr. Graham Hancock, has recently kind of headbutted his way back into the limelight here real quick. Mr. Hancock has just released a brand new series out on Netflix called Ancient Apocalypse, which, it's kind of in the same vein as Ancient Aliens. He goes around looking at all these ancient, megalithic sites and just, really cool places of interest where ancient people built something that is just incredible to us still today. But instead of saying that it was aliens that built these sites for these people, he does say something different. To his credit, it is not aliens. He does not attribute any of this stuff to aliens. Good for him. However, he does attribute it to Atlantis. So there's that. He literally says that there's a fucking road in the waters near Florida that led to the ancient city of fucking Atlantis. Atlantis has a direct route to Florida. What the fuck kind of timeline are we living in? Anyway, the launch of this series on Netflix has reignited my interest and passion for laughing hysterically at ancient aliens being completely wrong about everything that they're saying, and I feel like now is a good time to revisit it with a fresh pair of eyes, I'm older, more mature, I got a heartier laugh, so I'll be able to chuckle a little bit harder. Not only will I be going through the show and talking about their wildest claims, knocking them down as if they were the easiest dominoes that somebody left unglued on the floor. That's a weird thing to say. Maybe I shouldn't include that. I will be going through the series, episode by episode, releasing a new video for you all
every other Saturday.
That is no small feat, I hope you'll understand. This is quite the journey I'm forcing myself to undertake here. To that end, anybody who would like to join me on this wild adventure, I would highly appreciate it if you would click the subscribe button below this video and turn on all notifications for the channel. That way you get a reminder every week when a new episode comes out, that way you know to come back and watch another one. That would mean a lot to me, and let me know that you're interested in what I'm doing here. That way I have motivation to continue while I'm just bashing my head into the wall each week watching a new Ancient Aliens episode. That would mean a lot to me. So thank you if you did that. I really do appreciate it. Okay, so I think I should go over just a few things real quick here before we get started for real. Firstly, I'm not a historian. I'm not an archaeologist, not a geologist, not a proctologist. I'm none of that. I am an artist. I have a degree in fine arts. I went to college to learn how to draw and do stuff on the computer and make videos for you like this. This is what I know how to do. I am a professional artist. I feel like it's important to tell you this because I don't want to misrepresent myself. I didn't want you to assume that I was a qualified professional in the field of archaeology or whatever, just because I'm going to be talking authoritatively about things in this series. That said, I will be doing my best to research these topics as thoroughly as I possibly can before relaying my information to you in this series. I'm going to be doing my best to cite every source that I end up using in the description of each video, so if I ever make a claim that you're curious about, I would recommend heading down to the description and seeing what articles or citations, sources that I've left in there for you to go look through and dig maybe a little bit deeper than I may have presented to you, because I might not be presenting everything. And I will try to keep it as organized as I can. I think it's going to be in this corner of the video. There's going to be a little sample citation down there for you right now. That's going to pop up whenever I do say something that is cited in one of my sources in the description, and the numbers are all going to be there, so it's hopefully really easy for you to like double check and fact check what I say in this series. That way it's like totally transparent. You know where I'm getting my info from. You'll know it's good. You'll know it's good to go, because again, I'm not personally qualified to research this stuff myself, so I'm going to be referencing people that are certified, qualified to talk about this. But the good news here for me is that Ancient Aliens is so fucking stupid and makes such absurd claims that pretty much anybody who knows how to use Google can fact check them pretty easily. Furthermore, even though I am not a historian, my girlfriend is. She has a degree in history and studied a lot of this stuff in college, and she'll be watching a lot of these episodes with me while I'm going through and taking notes. So she'll be providing some pretty useful insight as well as we both attempt to fact check Ancient Aliens in real time, which, oh, that's fucking rough, let me tell you. But that's a problem for future me. Right now, better buckle your seatbelts, baby, because we're jumping dick first into this piranha-filled cesspool that is Ancient Aliens, Season 1, Episode 1, The Evidence. The Evidence. Yeah, okay, that was way better. Let's use that. You got that all out, right?
Saqqara, Egypt. Located roughly 20 miles south of Cairo, it is home to the world-famous step pyramid of King Djoser.
You know, I'm really glad they decided to front-load all the evidence they had into this one episode at the beginning of the series. It's really going to make covering the other episodes a whole lot simpler. Now, one thing you should know about Ancient Aliens is that it gets more and more unhinged the longer the show goes on. Now, don't get me wrong, they were always ridiculous and made outlandish claims. But come on, this is the beginning of the series. They've got a whole lot of unspent goodwill to burn, and baby, if they aren't gonna burn it. So with that in mind, I expect this first episode to be fairly tightly constructed, you know, compared to later episodes in the series. Not too many holes in logic, not too many great leaps, and who knows, maybe even a fairly strong through line throughout the episode that holds it all together in a way that makes the entire thing hard to debunk. So, with with those expectations in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at their first piece of evidence.
Among the various items discovered was a small wooden model of what appeared to be a bird, lying beside a papyrus bearing the inscription, "I want to fly."
Clearly, it should look like a bird. On the other hand, the wings are clearly not bird wings.
And this is a very modern aerodynamic design.
Huh. Maybe I was wrong. You know, I really expected something better than that. That's probably my bad, honestly. I mean, it's just a fucking bird, right? Like, we're all in agreement here. The ancient Egyptians did not have the ability to fly in a goddamn airplane. Like, that's not what we're saying here, right?
Then the other point is birds have no rudders, because a bird does not need a rudder because of its aerodynamic architecture. And so there is the idea they are not representing birds, but flying machines or aircraft.
Oh no, we are saying that then. We are saying that. We are saying the ancient Egyptians had airplanes. Okay. Oh no, yeah, great. No, that's fine. That's great. That's great. Yeah. That's great. So in their opening segment, they spend a lot of time talking about this wooden bird that was found in a tomb in Saqqara, Egypt. Saqqara, if you don't know, is a very big burial site. I don't know if it's technically a necropolis, but it does have a lot of burials in that area. So there's a lot of tombs there that contain a lot of valuables, a lot of things that these people had in life. Saqqara is a pretty interesting place, all things considered, and I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but I do know that, I think it was like a year or two ago, National Geographic, or wait, it wasn't National Geographic, Smithsonian, it was the Smithsonian, sponsored a documentary of, I think, a team excavating in the Saqqara area. I'll go ahead and show like a picture of that here, where my hand is, and link it in the description. So if you're interested in learning more about Saqqara, which I highly recommend you do, I'm gonna do my best to link that in the description for you so you can go check it out. And anyway, this wooden bird was found in one of those tombs in Saqqara. It's a really neat little carving, and yeah, it doesn't quite look like a real bird. You know, no bird has wings that look exactly like that, or tail feathers that look exactly like that, or are oriented that way. But I mean, it doesn't have to, right? Like, it's art. It's supposed to be representative of something that actually exists. It doesn't have to be, you know, a perfect one-to-one recreation. But alright, let's humor them. Let's humor them a little bit. They think it might be something that represents a larger glider or airplane that the Egyptians might have had. Okay, fine. It doesn't. But let's just say for a second that it does. Where are they going with this? Well, they go on to recycle footage from an even older History Channel documentary called Ancient Discoveries, Cars and Planes. And in that clip, the scientists create a scaled-up model of the Saqqara bird and put it into a wind tunnel so they can measure how aerodynamic it is. When they go ahead and perform this experiment on the scaled-up Saqqara bird, they learn that it has very similar attributes to what we would call modern-day gliders, which is interesting. And then it is based on this bit of information that they go on to say that ancient Egyptians knew how to build and frequently used actual fucking gliders. Hey guys, it's a fucking toy that glides. I really don't know how they missed the possibility that this was just a little gliding toy. Like, we make paper airplanes still today that serve essentially the same function that this little toy would have. But you don't see us saying that, oh, you know, look at that scaled up paper airplane that people are flying on. It just doesn't happen. It should be so incredibly obvious that this is a little glider toy that's supposed to resemble a bird, so it would make sense if you were making a little toy glider in a time where you didn't have something like an airplane to model it after, that you would model it after the only other fucking goddamn flying thing in your vicinity is just so frustrating because it's hard for me to think that they did this out of just, you know, an innocent, like, I thought of everything and I didn't just come across this possibility. The possibility just never crossed my mind. It is far more likely that it was intentional that they left this possibility out of the documentary, because then literally nobody would assume that this is a smaller version of an actual gliding thing that Egyptians goddamn had. Like, not only have we found 0 remnants of gliders or anything resembling an actual sized glider or plane in Egypt, but it's in the middle of the fucking desert. Like, where are you gonna use a glider, my man? Like, what, were these dudes that had gliders, were they scuttling their little legs up the top of Great Pyramid, spitting on the pharaoh's grave just to get some good ups? No, it's a fucking toy. But it is funny that they treat it like it's not. So, now that we have this context, and they have not given anybody that context, let's go ahead and see where they're going with this.
During the Sanderson tests, it was discovered that the only thing preventing the Saqqara bird from achieving flight was the lack of a rear stabilizing rudder, or elevator, needed to maintain balance.
Yeah, no shit. Birds don't generally have those. But instead of, at this point, throwing this thing out clearly as wasted time, they double down on this dumbass theory. They literally glue a fucking rudder to the tail of this bird and then build it in a goddamn flight simulator and show you how it would work and actually fly if only it had a rudder. I think it might be missing some other parts, guys. I can't put my finger on it. Oh, and the best part is the only justification for sticking on this very crucial piece of engineering is this tiny goddamn chip on the end of the tail that they claim is damage from when the rudder broke off. My man, I have things that are less than a week old that are in worse shape than this. This thing's 2,000 goddamn years old. All right. This one, I don't think we can talk about this one much longer. I have run out of things to say about it, and they're clearly stretching this way beyond they have the capability to. So why don't we just save them a little bit of embarrassment and move on to the next thing that they have to say. Let's see what their next piece of evidence is. And hopefully it's got nothing to do with goddamn airplanes.
Early in the 20th century, tomb robbers searching along the Magdalena River stumbled upon a gravesite dating back 1,500 years to a pre-Columbian civilization known as the Tolima. Among the funerary objects found there were hundreds of small 2 to 3 inch gold figurines.
Many of those looked like insects and fish. However, out of those hundreds that they found, they also found about a dozen that are eerily reminiscent of modern-day fighter jets.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. More airplanes?
They have a triangular shape, they have an upright tail fin, stabilizers, and a fuselage. And they have nothing in common with anything similar in nature.
Okay, so this part of the video is dedicated to what the ancient aliens people call the Tolima figurines. Now, when I went to do some research about these figurines, I surprisingly found very little from reputable sources. There were really only web pages linking back to this episode of Ancient Aliens. I tried using a bunch of different search terms that were different ways of how you could describe these figurines. But no matter what I searched, nothing new came up. It was just the same list of links every single time. However, when I finally searched Tolima gold figures airplane, Google immediately spat out something entirely different than what I'd been seeing, and I pretty quickly found out what these figures really are. These are the Quimbaya artifacts. Or the Quimbaya artifacts. I'm not really sure which one. They were found in a region of Colombia in South America, and I'm not really sure what the correct way to pronounce this is. Maybe Google can tell us?
Quimbaya.
Also, another little disclaimer about the information about these artifacts that I'm going to relay to you. Everything that I'm telling you comes from Wikipedia, because it is the legitimately only source that I could find that had anything remotely, reputable about these artifacts. And when I went to go check the citation for everything that I found on Wikipedia about this, it is behind an article that is paywalled that I am not paying $25 to read. So take everything you hear in this part of the video with a bit of a grain of salt. But that said, this is still more information about these artifacts than Ancient Aliens will tell you, so there's that. Alright, disclaimer over. According to this article that I'm not paying $25 to read, these artifacts were discovered in the northern part of South America in 1890, like I said, in the Columbia region. They date back to around 2,500 years ago, and they're found in a pile of, I think, hundreds of other figurines. And the figurines that were found range in style from human to animal to insect to fish. However, that is pretty much all we can say for certain about these little artifacts because, say it with me, sloppy archaeology. Yeah, so around 1890 was not the best time for things like this to be discovered. A lot of people did not have any respect for the ancient cultures that ended up creating these amazing pieces, and a lot of it ended up in trade, either on the black market or in private collections. Very little of this stuff ended up making its way into the public record, into museums where they could be properly stored and taken care of. And given the high price people were willing to pay for this stuff back in the day, a lot of forgeries ended up being made. And in the case of the Quimbaya artifacts, these in particular have been hard to keep track of, mainly because forgers somehow found their way into having parts of real figurines, and rather than just sell the real part that they had, they ended up finishing the design. They added onto it, so that way they were half forgeries. And so a lot of these, it's really hard to tell if any of them are fully genuine or not. And it's really sad to know that we can't know more about these figurines, especially since I think, as far as I could tell, we know very little about the culture that made them too. So these are just very, very interesting and probably destined to forever be mysterious artifacts. And it is this very mysteriousness and sloppy recording of their histories that have made it so people haven't taken as much of an interest in these artifacts as maybe they should have. In fact, nobody seems to really even think about these things anymore, except for the Ancient Aliens crew. Now remember, we might not know a lot about these artifacts, but what we do know is the condition they were discovered in. They were discovered in a large group of, like Giorgio Tsoukalos says, hundreds of other artifacts. They were discovered in a pile of stuff that can only be described as stylized animals, insects, and fish, and these 10 or 12 or so were picked out of that lot. Out of all the hundreds of other stylized animal figurines that they found in that area, these are the only dozen or so that resemble anything at all like a plane. And given that there's no examples of a 2,500-year-old fighter jet rotting away in some cave in Colombia, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and wager that these are just more of the same. Stylized birds, animals, insects, and fish. It definitely makes the most sense, and like I said, the people that found them back in the day didn't seem to think they were anything out of the ordinary. But of course, because it's Ancient Aliens, they have to go ahead and try to prove their points in the stupidest ways possible. Alright, Giorgio, lay it on me. Show me what you got.
In 1997, German aviation experts including Algun Ingbohm and Peter Belting set out to prove the speculation by building a scale model replica of the Gold Flyer, fully equipped with landing gear and a working engine.
Hey! You can't do that! That's cheating! These figures don't have landing gear or fucking engines. Also, these don't look anything like the little gold figurines. It's got a fucking exhaust tube coming out of it. It's missing the little frilly things on the wings. You basically just made a remote control airplane and grafted the look of these golden figurines onto it. That's fucking cheating! Of course it's gonna fly if you make it fly. The ancient Colombians did not have access to landing gear or fucking engines.
They did not add an inch or remove an inch.
It's got a fucking propeller on it, you dingus!
This is applied science. This isn't just thinking somewhere. This is people going out there and making sure and proving with eyes to see, anybody can see this, that this is real, this is genuine.
Alright, sure, whatever, man. Look, let's just move on from this. Let's see what they got next. Point number 3, evidence number 3. Come on. This can't be much worse. Can it?
India is considered one of the oldest civilizations, with settlements dating back over 11,000 years. It is also home to several of the oldest records of ancient technologies. Ancient Sanskrit texts dating back as far as 6000 BC describe in varying but vivid detail flying machines called Vimanas.
The fuck is a Vimana?
Vimanas are aeroplanes, and they are powered by some jet engines. Grass was thrown out because there was a lot of pressure from behind those Vimanas, so that we can say this is a description of the spaceship.
Wow. That's a bold fucking claim. And I've legitimately never heard of this thing before. I guess let's take a look and see what we can find out about Vimanas. It runs on donkey urine? What the fuck? Alright, so in this section, it looks like they're referencing an ancient 6,000-year-old description of something called a Vimana, which means aircraft. Also, sorry, but in this section, I'm going to butcher the names of these people terribly, so I'd like to apologize in advance. It seems that an Indian sage named Maharishi Bhardwaj had written stories about ancient flying machines in 2 separate Sanskrit texts, one called the Brihad Vimana Shastra and the other called Vimanika Shastra, which is the one referenced here by ancient aliens. In this text, the sage describes 4 separate Vimanas, one of which could travel by land, air, and sea. Another Vimana supposedly ran on, I'm not kidding, donkey piss. A retired pilot named Captain Anand J. Bodus spoke about them at length during the 102nd Indian Science Congress in Mumbai University, according to an article by the Deccan Herald, which is where I'm getting a majority of this info from. The article says that Captain Bodus not only speaks about these Sanskrit texts, but says that working prototypes were built 20 years before the Wright brothers' successful plane test in 1903. That is a wild claim. I mean, this whole thing is. You heard about the donkey piss, right? But not everything is as it seems. The article goes on to say that these Sanskrit texts that were supposed to have been written 6,000 years ago were actually written within the last century, between 1900 and 1922. They were able to ascertain this information due to the advanced technical knowledge seen in the diagrams that would have been known around that time. Additionally, the verbiage and dialect of the written text matched a much more modern writing style than that of Vedic Sanskrit text, and they were actually able to trace the writings back to one person, Pandit Subrahmanya Shastri, who died in 1941, matching the timeline previously put forward for the texts being much more modern than previously told. Turns out that Vimanas are modern imaginations by people who were enraptured with the early success that airplanes were seeing around that time. And of course they are! They even mention in this episode that the descriptions of Vimanas sound incredibly modern.
The flight manuals of the Vimanas are quite similar to the flight manuals you find in the modern passenger flight business.
And by the way, just in case you were wondering, which hopefully you weren't, there's absolutely no way that any of these things could ever fly. I mean, donkey piss? Really? They mention that there are pools of mercury, gyroscopes, electricity, the whole 9 yards. And the shape of these things is just really weird. They look like if you tried to open a flying saucer like a chip bag, but instead of exploding everywhere, they kind of just stretched and got taller. Hopefully you don't need me to tell you that this design is as aerodynamic as a fly that lost both its wings. No, like, seriously, you do not need me to tell you that. Because Ancient Aliens fucking tells you that!
To have something light enough to actually fly, it's not at all clear that this will be a practical device.
The Mercury vortex engine is perhaps a failure in the translation, because the vortex is not a material quite suitable to a jet engine.
They just openly say that the Vimanas do not work. They're not aerodynamic, their method of propulsion does not work, and their fuel described wouldn't power a fucking thing. You can't run a spaceship on donkey piss! They lay it all out in the open for you. And what do they do with this information, you ask? Well, let's find out.
But if Vimanas existed, could this prove there was a worldwide transportation network thousands of years before Columbus?
Yep, they straight up ignore it. I mean, did you really expect anything different? It's like, did they even fucking proofread this? Like, it reads honest to God like satire. Like, I don't even know what else to say about it. They go on to say that they think that Vimanas were used like planes are used today, to connect ancient civilizations all across the globe with one another. Now, putting aside the fact that Vimanas are not real and would not work even if they were, what exactly is there evidence for the tiniest little microscopic donkey piss of a chance that this intercontinental global transportation system actually existed?
Just like we have airports today around the world. In ancient times, with the Vimanas, there would have been hangars for the craft, airports for them to land, and that's exactly what we see in remote places. One of the unusual archaeological sites in Mexico is a place called Monte Alban. That is also a mountain where the top of the mountain was completely cut off and leveled to make a very flat tabletop mountain.
Yeah, so they say that because flat places existed, that they must have been airports. You can't make this shit up. Putting aside the sheer ridiculousness of that statement, let's instead look at the more concrete example that they give, Monte Alban. Monte Alban is an ancient Zapotec city at the top of a mountain in the Oaxaca Valley. It is an incredible site that is actually now a part of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. It has a rich history and was inhabited for a period of over 1,500 years by several different indigenous tribes, including the Olmecs. I don't think a single person would argue that this city on a mountain is anything other than breathtaking. Now, why do you think the amazing people that built this city took the time to level the ground underneath them for 300 years? Was it so that they could build and maintain a never-before-seen on its scale airport that serviced the entirety of the ancient world? Or did they do it so they could build their fucking city? This one is just so unbelievably dumb, and I know we've talked about a lot of dumb shit already today, but this one easily takes the cake for just how incredibly and categorically, absolutely fucking stupid it is.
King Solomon, it's described, he had access to some type of a flying machine. And in that part of the world, the term flying carpet was always used very liberally.
No. 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 Nope.
There are traditions in the Middle East of King Solomon having this airship and flying to different places in the Middle East, certain mountains, which are known as the Mountains of Solomon.
He said the mountains of what now? Okay, this one checks out. They then try to say that flying machines of some kind must have existed back then because of these old maps that supposedly show the world at the end of the Younger Dryas 12,000 years ago. This one in particular, I think it's the Orontes Phineas map, is supposed to show Antarctica without any ice. It's fucking Australia. I don't have a lot of time to go over these particular maps at the moment, but if you would like to learn more about these maps and why they're fucking silly and how I know that this is actually not Antarctica, but is in fact Australia, I would highly recommend this video by Mini Minute Man breaking down this map. I don't know if he has a video about both of them or if it's just the Orontes Phineas map or the Piri Reis. If he does have separate videos for both, I will link them both below, or if it's just the one, I'll go ahead and link just that one, but yeah, he has a great breakdown of it. But I think it's not a stretch to say that the Ancient Aliens crew is grasping at straws at this point. They're trying to find a single, minute shred of something, anything that would back up the claims that there was a plane-faring civilization back thousands of years ago, and they just can't find anything because it didn't fucking exist, and it just ends up looking really, really desperate. Flying carpets? Really? And speaking of desperation,
one of the most referenced stories of ancient aircraft is found in a surprising place, the Bible.
Yep, they're going there. An ahistorical book full of allegorical stories being used as evidence of ancient alien visitations. Well, now you're speaking my language.
Could this be another example of an alien visitation and proof that prehistoric aircraft existed?
Damn, Jesus! Them things banging! I mean, do you even need me to cover this bit? It's a story from the Bible. It's not real. This is such a huge waste of time. Some dude makes a UFO-looking thing and a place to put it based on a Bible story. It's another case of somebody constructing something to work because they want it to work. This is a lot. This has been a lot. We've gone over a lot of stuff already in this episode. I mean, I guarantee you that I've done more research for this video than they have done for the entire 18-season run of the show so far. Like, that's how bad this is. You know, let me just actually skip past this part real quick. You know, it's probably the last bit they have to show anyway. Like, it's just so weak and tenuous. This has to be the end of the episode. Like, you can't show anything past this. This is as low as you can go, picking stories from the Bible. Nothing gets worse than that, so this has to be the end, right?